All right. So this is Joey and Natalie, and you are joining us for Married to Ministry.
Hashtag married to ministry.
Hashtag Married to Ministry.
Did you see what I did?
Question mark?
Hashtag.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've been in, my name is Joey. I've been in ministry for like a long time. I'd say maybe 10 years. Involved in ministry in some aspect.
I would say
serving,
longer than that.
Or, yeah, probably way longer than that, actually.
Because 10 years ago, Joey, how old were you?
23.
Joey's showing his
Yikes.
gray hairs.
Yikes. That's why I'm wearing a hat.
No, he doesn't have any gray hairs. Do you have gray hairs?
I have like one maybe, and I think I plucked it out. But anyway, I've been in ministry for a while. Since I was, it's definitely over 10 years. Since I was in high school, I've been serving in some aspect of ministry.
20 years.
My family has also been involved in ministry for a long time. So that was where I got my influence in wanting to be in ministry. And Natalie, you know.
Yeah, so I've been serving in some capacity since I was like 11.
Yeah.
And I'm 20, almost 28.
Yeah.
28 next month.
Whoa.
You can get me birthday presents if you're watching. I'll send you my address. Anyways.
We're not doing that.
We're not doing that. My P.O. Box. I'm just kidding. P.O. Box.
P.O. Box.
Do you remember Zoom?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't remember. I used to have
wish I
the
remembered it.
address memorized.
Yes. 14960 or something like that.
Anyways, but I remember
ministry.
I started serving on the kids leadership team in my kids church, and you did the same thing,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
Yeah, so we're like in
Fifth
fourth
grade.
and fifth grade, which my church was a little bit more smaller. It was like 13 is when you moved up. So up until 12, you were in kids church.
Yeah.
But 13 is when you moved up to youth group. So
Yeah, we served in ours. We could start serving in fifth grade. And then in sixth grade, you could stay and serve, or you would transition out into big church.
I think I was like 10, 11
Wow.
when I started doing like worship and the games and things like that in our Power Zone is what we called it, Power Zone Kids. And so since then, like literally, then I got into youth group, started serving in worship, started doing door-to-door ministry, started doing all these different things. And eventually my two sisters, my parents were just all super involved.
Wow.
Like, I mean, all the time, right? So, like, I remember I told you this once. Is we were probably at church. We were at church on Sunday morning, Sunday night. I went to school at my church, so Monday, Tuesday. Yeah. Then Wednesday night, Thursday night, and when I got like in late high school, I started a Saturday night outreach service, and we were represented at every single one of those services. If I wasn't there, someone else was, and I probably was there. So it was like very busy ministry time. But yeah.
Same. I mean, we are growing up. We did the same thing. We were at church
Like
basically
24/7.
7 days a week. It felt like
You skipped school to go to church.
I did occasionally do stuff like that, or I would skip school to just
Called
go
out.
play video
Sorry.
games. So that was also a thing that happened. I wasn't
Yikes.
very holy my whole life. So
Well,
hey yo,
went to hang out with your friends that were
yes,
at church.
correct.
Or
Enjoyed doing
working
that.
at church or something
Or
when you were like high school.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Is that just what you told me in front of your mom?
Maybe it's possible.
She was like, oh, yeah. My holy son.
holy little Juan.
But yeah, no. I think it's, well, anyways, introduction to us. That's us.
That's who we are. And then we want to
know.
intro
We're
you to
married.
we are married.
Mine's a rubber ring because my hands are swollen from being
And
pregnant.
mine is a titanium wood band ring, which is
Wow. Let's go into details of
it's
what the
amazing.
ring looks like.
I love it. It's one
does
ring to
really love
rule
his
them
ring.
all.
To rule them all.
It's the ring of power.
This is not a men run the home type of ministry podcast.
This is not. She beats me. She's abusive.
I'm just kidding. No, I don't.
I'm not kidding.
No, I don't.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Don't call the cops on me.
Please don't.
No, that's to rule them all.
It's from the Rings of Power. It's the TV show.
Sorry, I didn't know that.
Lord have mercy. Anyway,
Oops.
we're married. This is our podcast.
And we're in our house.
And we're in a house. This is kind of the vibe I feel like I wanted to go for this.
Yeah, me too.
We did it. We shot a podcast, this one, or at least the intro one, at my studio. recently, like 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. We
Joey
had our
has a
son
podcast
there.
studio.
Yeah. We took my son there, which was, we thought it was going to be fine,
Your
but
son
he
is
was a
my
lot.
son.
We
Please
took our
please
son,
explain
our
that.
son. He's not just mine. It's our son.
Yeah.
We have a son together.
Yeah, it's
we have
great.
another one on the way. And then
Yes,
we
we
have a
do.
daughter right there. She's on the.
And then the other dog is outside.
Yeah, the other dog.
He's not our son.
He's not. But anyway, we brought our son Jackson with us to the podcast studio to, shoot our podcast. We wanted
Yeah.
to do this. And it was very difficult. I was very stressed out and anxious because he, like, every 2 minutes, he was like picking me up. He's like, up, up, up. And then he's like, down, down, down.
And he probably wasn't as bad. Like, I was pretty like, he's okay, whatever. And
Yeah.
I could just keep talking.
Yeah.
Because I have that, like, I guess, mom brain
Yeah,
where
that's
sometimes
true.
I don't even hear him crying. I'm just in the middle of doing stuff, and Joey's like,
Hello.
he's screaming and we're in public.
Hello.
And
He's
I'm like,
losing his mind.
okay.
He is losing the mind that we have given.
No,
He's been
but
blessed
also
with.
he had been with me all day.
This
So
is
then
true.
we get to Joey's studio, and he had been setting up, and he had been working. And he was like, da, 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 da,
Yeah.
da, da. And it
So,
was stressing him out. So
100%.
I was chill.
But anyway,
Joey was not.
that was so. This is
I
our
was hot there.
This is our little family, and this is
Yeah.
our podcast. And the reason we do this podcast, the purpose behind this podcast,
Married to ministry.
Married to ministry.
Question mark?
Question mark?
We're
Maybe.
thinking about putting a question mark at the end of it. I don't want to, but I see why we should.
Yes, because
And we're going to explain that to you right
yes,
now.
in a few seconds we will. So married to ministry, and why I wanted to do this podcast is for people who have been in ministry, have left ministry, or thinking about going into full-time ministry, or
Yeah.
volunteers in ministry in some aspect in ministry in the church and a Christian organization.
You feel like you
whatever you do.
have a ministry, you do ministry.
Yes.
Like, this is for you.
This is for you. This is to hopefully.
And fun fact, that should be every Christian.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other conversation.
That's true. This is to encourage you, really, to encourage people to, hopefully
Yeah.
not discourage you, but at least redirect what you're thinking, or hopefully maybe let you think about something you weren't thinking about.
Yeah. And help talk about what is healthy
Yeah.
and what healthy
Yes.
ministry looks like.
Yes.
I think probably every single Christian out there, if you've been a Christian for long enough, you have experienced unhealthy ministry.
Yes.
And it's because they're humans. We are humans. Everybody's humans. And so this isn't about the bad. That's not what we want to talk about,
No.
because we have had amazing experiences in ministry
Yeah.
and we love it. And
Yeah.
we love being in full-time ministry when we were, and we loved being in part-time when we were.
Yeah.
And now neither of us work at a church, but we both serve consistently.
Yeah.
And honestly, I want to do more, but I don't know how to yet right
Yeah.
now in this season of my life,
Yeah.
which is a part of this, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's a part of what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Is
because you're expecting right now. How
Again.
far along are you? And
I'm like almost in the
20
third trimester, almost 28 weeks.
28 weeks. So you're pretty far along. So it's a little bit more difficult for you to do and serve the way you used
oh
to
my
in
gosh,
the capacity
I want
you
to do
used to.
so much.
Yeah.
But that's honestly what this is about, is being able to say, okay, pause. If I selfishly serve consistently
Mm-hmm.
in the way that I want to, I would be neglecting my family,
Yeah.
which is what God has called me to prioritize in this season of my
100%.
life. And so,
Your first ministry.
yeah, absolutely. And we could I really want to dive into what the word says about this, and
Yeah,
like really
yeah.
study up and get all that prepared for us to talk about in a podcast, maybe break it down
Yeah.
into some like series or something. But honestly, this is about what healthy ministry looks like,
Yeah.
and how you can say, maybe I might be in an unhealthy situation, or saying, wow, I have found a really healthy church to be a part of, and I found a really
Yeah.
healthy body to connect with and to be in ministry with.
Yeah, and I want to also add that it doesn't just have to be a focus on like the
Yeah.
ministry that you're serving in,
Or church.
or church you're serving in, but maybe it's like the ministry, and how you impact that ministry.
Yeah.
Like, how can I be healthy? How can you be healthy while serving in ministry? Because if you focus too much on the human and the person who is the leader over a specific ministry or the
Oh,
ministry itself,
absolutely.
then you are always going to find a flaw in
Yes.
it, because nobody is perfect.
Nobody's
You're
perfect.
working and dealing with man, even though they're pastors or leaders or people who work at church, they are still human. So
Yeah.
you have
It's
to
not Jesus.
internalize. You have to internally look at yourself and be like,
Yes.
am I good enough?
good,
Am
Joe.
I okay with sacrificing and being okay with doing this right now, because it's not going to be perfect. You're always going to find an issue. There's always going to be something that's going to be wrong or that you don't like,
Yeah. But we are so thankful to be where we are right now, to have found a ministry and a church that we are like, man, we want to be here for forever.
Yeah.
Unless God calls us to go work somewhere else or do something
Sure.
else.
Yeah.
Like right now we're like, man, this is good. And and it's when you, aside from that, ministry is more than just being at a church and serving. It's what God has called you to do and like operating in that. So like, for instance, you can be in ministry in your workplace. You can be in ministry in your family. You can be in ministry in all these things. It's just kind of figuring out how to balance your relationship with Christ and like prioritizing that, and then other things that fall after that.
My buddy showed me a video recently about a preacher, and it's
Don't
something.
fall asleep, wake up.
Yeah, I need some coffee. He showed me a video, and we can show you here in a little bit, about a preacher talking, I guess, to other people in ministry.
Yeah.
I think I sent it to you, but
Probably.
it's something
Probably in the reels.
It's something that God convicted me of
Oh, wow.
when I was 17 or 18 years old. I was playing drums for church, and I was like, I loved drumming more than anything. I loved, like, my dream was to be able to be a drummer and play in massive stadiums all over the world. And then I had a shift when God challenged me, and he said, I loved worshiping on the drums, and I would play and sing on the drums, and while I'm playing the drums and like just giving my heart out, I felt like, just going all in. And then I felt like God told me, if I took away your hands right now, would you still worship me?
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. You did send that to me. Oh, that
And
was
I was
good.
like,
that was good.
when I felt that,
I posted that.
oh my gosh,
That was impactful.
it's huge, because it's like, it's so real. Like, if sometimes we focus on worship or doing what we feel like ministry is to us as worship to God, and we feel like it's one specific thing, but like God's called you to so much more than that. If you only focus on music as ministry, then you're missing a whole nother point of maybe what God's called you and put you on this earth to do.
Yeah.
So when he convicted me with that, I was like, whoa. And then he's like, if I took away your feet, and you couldn't walk anymore, would you still worship me?
Would you still go walk and share the
Oh
gospel?
my gosh.
Would you get up out of bed?
And then he's like, if I took away your voice, would you still worship me? And I'm like, dude, I'm a musician. You're hitting all my points right now, Lord.
Yeah.
So when he told me that, at that point, I was like, I realized ministry is more than just music. Ministry is more than worship, than the worship I'm doing musically, but it's also being in obedience to God and doing what he's called me to do, which was reach people and connect with people and tell people about who he is. So I decided at that point,
Whatever it looks like.
I was like, I need to find somebody else. I need to find my replacement for drums. And I was like, you know what? I started slow. I remember just declining on request and saying, hey, can you serve this week? I'm like, no, can we find somebody else? Like, I started trying to push myself out as much as I could so somebody else could step up and step into that position.
Yeah.
Because another thing is, like, if you're the one who's always doing the ministry, if you're the one who's always keeping it afloat, and you're never allowing somebody an opportunity to grow and step into that place, then eventually that ministry is going to die. That thing is never going to grow.
Yeah.
And it'll never grow any more than you.
Yeah, and you don't want to limit God, and you don't ever want to put God in a box.
Yeah.
And when this is a really strong topic we could probably talk about a lot, but when it becomes about me, I'm not doing it right. I'm not doing what God's called me to do.
Yeah.
One thing I've loved in learning and things like that is we worked out a place, and they were kind of like, when you get comfortable, it means you're in the wrong position and we're going to have to move you. And I'm like, man, I just like hit a stride in like outreach. I did outreach. I led the outreach department for a while, and I felt like, man, I'm getting good at this. Like this is, I'm really finding my groove. I'm finding what the community wants. I'm finding all these things. This is good. This is great. I'm getting comfortable. I've got all my systems.
Yeah.
I've got everything planned. And when was it that coming into that busy season, they were like, knock, knock, knock. How do you feel about kids ministry? And I was like, You are on crack. Like, and
in the nicest way possible.
In the nicest way possible.
You know,
and the person I talked to will love to hear that in this podcast, because she literally was like, I know that's the one thing you said you didn't want to do. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, so when do you want to start? But it was because honestly, like, and I knew God was going to stretch me in that season, and it was going to be a tough one. But as soon as you get comfortable and you start being comfortable with your ministry or with your life or with things, that God's going to call you somewhere else. Yeah. Every single place in the Bible, you see that happening. Yeah. So many different stories, so many different people who, when comfortability comes, when this complacency comes, and I'm just getting stagnant with God, that's when either the enemy creeps in and you fall into sin, or two, when God is trying to pull you to elevate you somewhere else. Yeah. And so, and it's just like continuing on your ministry. And it doesn't mean that you have to be married to ministry. It means that you are committed to doing your ministry and doing your lifestyle in God's path and following his will and doing as much as you can to understand the Holy Spirit and to walk in that. And I think that that's where sometimes we trip up, is where we focus on ourselves. Yeah. I want to play drums for the rest of my life. I wanted to be a worship pastor so bad. Do you remember that? And like, really, when I got out of college, I knew I want to be a worship pastor. Yeah. I can do all the other stuff too, but that's what I want to do. I want to sing. I want to lead worship every Sunday. I don't want to just sing. I want to lead. Man, I got in my way. Oof. And I felt I was in this place where I had gotten a lot of opportunities in college. I was so blessed and honored to be a part of some great ministries where I did have the chance to lead. I grew up in a smaller church where I got the chance to lead all the time. Now, I wasn't the worship pastor. I wasn't picking songs. I wasn't doing all the things, but I was singing all the time and I was soloing all the time. I was leading all the time, and my ego got in my way. And then I was like, I want to be a worship pastor. I can do it. I got this. God's called me to this. Yeesh. No, God did not call me to be a worship pastor. Now, I think in a different season, absolutely I could do that. Yeah. Like, I think that God has equipped me with resources and things, but what happened was I got in my own way. And so he put me in places where I was doing things that I thought was the least. And it was really hard for me because I was like, if I serve in kids, I'm not going to be able to sing anymore. Not in the most selfish way. Yeah. And so I had to get out of my way, watch as God used me exactly. And like, I was able to be in a ministry that had such an impact on my life. Yeah. And I did kids in 2 different places, and it had such a massive impact on my life. It helped me see the love of God in a beautiful way, be intentional. I mean, all the different times where scripture talks about children and Jesus sits down with the children and teaches them, I was like, man, I really am walking, like, I feel really close with God. And it wasn't what I thought it was. And I was married to this idea of what my ministry life was going to look like.
That's good.
And all these things, I had all these dreams that I thought were God-given dreams, but they were my like my heart, my flesh getting in the way. And man, God wrecked me and continues to, because now I get tripped up because I'm not full-time in ministry. Yeah. And that's all I ever wanted. But I am in full-time ministry because I get to be this boy's mom and help him learn the love of God. And I get to be Roman's mom and help him learn the love of God. And now I still work full-time, right? And like, I have a job with a great company that has been, I mean, I love being able to work for godly people and being able to be in ministry in my workplace. And for me, though, that's not my ministry. This is my ministry. And just knowing that is a part of this, what healthy ministry is like. It's not doing what I want, but doing what I need to do, I guess. I mean, God will help me do whatever I just do. He gives us the power and authority. And if I choose to do something, like, he will equip me and help me. But at the same time, like, being a mom is my highest calling I could ever have. And when things interfere with that, whether it's ministry or not, that's when I'm like, okay, well, God has called me to something else. God has called me to this. And so I have to prioritize this. It's kind of wild.
It is. It is a little crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, something I think about sometimes is I look back and if you start to see signs as like when you know it's probably trying to transition.
A shift is coming.
A shift
Yeah.
is coming. A telltale sign for me was when people would tell me, "Hey, fix your face." Like, fix your
When
face.
you're like doing something,
Yes.
like you're doing whatever in ministry,
Yeah.
and you gotta look like you like it.
Yeah. And maybe
That's
maybe that's
real.
not maybe that's not the best way to shift or to change ministries or to know that it's time to move. You know, maybe sometimes there is a little bit of grit that you're going to need to go past, and you're going to
Absolutely.
need to learn to fix your face through the process, and it's not
Yeah.
always going to be fun,
Absolutely.
because there are times, and there were times where it's not fun, you know, and you're going to be doing things that you don't like to do. I
Yeah.
can remember. Oh man.
Ha.
Southeastern University Extension Site campus in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And it was sometime in December. And I was one of the, students doing their practicum at SEU Fort Lauderdale. And I remember it was my responsibility to stack up all of the choir chairs because we're going to get ready to do Christmas stuff and rehearsals. And all the chairs needed to be stacked. And I'm like, it's like 200, 250 chairs that needed to be stacked up. And
This is a
moved.
choir church.
It was a big choir church.
We love the choir churches.
Oh, yeah, love them. They're great. But
also,
yeah,
those
so it was my
chairs.
responsibility to get that done or figure out how to get it done. And I didn't do it. And
For probably some
Yeah,
relatively reasonable
I had,
reasons. It didn't feel good.
No, yeah, I had some other stuff come up, and like in between between everything I was doing, and then I just forgot to get to it when I needed to,
When you were healthy.
when I was better, and then the evening before,
It all
rehearsal was going to
needed to be
happen.
done, yeah.
It all needed to get done, and I had like 102 fever. I was laying in bed, and I get a call from one of my leaders, Kevin Richelieu. Who's a pastor now, awesome pastor, love that dude to death. And he's like, "Hey, bro, what you doing?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm laying in bed, man. I got a fever. I'm not feeling good." He's like, you got to come stack up these chairs, right?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm like not feeling great at all." He's like, "Well, bro, you should have got that done already because we got rehearsal, and that's got to get done.
You were supposed to have already done it.
That was your responsibility." And I was like, it was like 8 or 9 o'clock. It was late at night. And I remember I huffed and puffed my way. And the thing about that, where I lived, I was right next door to church. Like,
Yeah.
we were basically.
so you were like,
Oh.
when you were in this like ministry
Yeah.
opportunity, you were living like in a
basically,
parsonage or something.
yeah, I was living in a parsonage right next to the church. So there was no getting out of this.
No.
And I had a key to the campus. Like, you were getting in.
Yeah.
And if you needed a key, don't worry. A key would have been handed to you.
Yeah, I'll
Because
be
you
there.
had to
I'll
get
give
your
you-
job done.
yeah.
So I
gotta
walk
take
over
accountability of it.
and I stack up every single one of those chairs, huffing and puffing. And I did what I needed to do.
What'd that teach
and
you,
it took
though?
me a few hours. And I was frustrated.
Yeah.
And I was mad.
Yeah.
And I was sick. And I wasn't feeling good. And I was like, oh. But it gave me a sense of responsibility. And then the next night, when all the people were there rehearsing and people were there excited about, I'm like, I could have really. And then I thought about my leaders, I was like, I could have put Kevin in a bad space,
Yeah.
and I really could have been a jerk. I could have been a jerk, and it wouldn't have been great for me. But I would have shown a different side of myself, and wouldn't have probably allowed myself to be in the position now in ministry or have done things in ministry.
Yeah.
If I would have given that attitude. And what I didn't realize is at that moment is that people are always watching.
Yeah.
People are always watching, especially in ministry, to see how you're going to react and see how you're going to handle certain things. So that definitely taught me, like, one, don't slack off on what you're doing. But two, it gave me a sense of responsibility. And then, like, all three, it was like people are always watching,
Yeah. I absolutely.
It sucked. It really did suck.
Yeah.
I got home at like 12 o'clock
sure.
at night. You know, it was like 8 when I got there, and I left at like 12, and I was frustrated and I was mad.
Yeah.
But I'm very thankful for, you know, that lesson that I had to learn.
You got some grit.
Yeah.
It was a moment where you grew a little bit of grit.
Yeah.
And I think too, you know, no matter what what we're doing in ministry, no matter where we go in our life and what's going on, as long as we can come into it saying, I took ownership, I did responsibility, I did exactly what I was supposed to do, we're continuing to be able to walk in that path that God has for us. When we start neglecting what God has given us, that's when we're not healthy in ministry. When we start neglecting the level of responsibility we have, either God has given us something and said, come on, like, I need you to take care of this.
Yeah.
And we're not taking care of it. Or it's something we're trying to carry instead of what God is trying to give us. And so I think honestly, like, that's such a good example of like, God gave you, it might've been small, but he was equipping you little by little to get to the place that you needed to be able to do the different things that he's asked you to do. And so I think everything in our life is, if we're, you know, being like called, right? Our calling as believers. I don't know how long we've been going.
We should probably cut it here in a sec.
Okay. I'll just end with this. Our calling as believers, and we can dive into this another time, is to, when we accept Jesus into our heart, we believe and we confess, right? Then we do the Great Commission. Yeah. Go into all the world to preach the gospel. Gospel. This is the gospel. This is the good news. Oh my God. But we preach the gospel to every nation, and we love our neighbor. Yeah. And that's it. Everything else is in addition to it. So that is our ministry. That is our calling, is to follow Christ, to tell everybody about him, and to love those around us. All the other things are the add-ons that God gives us, right? The little blessings, or the basket that we're holding that he's filling. And to be able to say, I did my ultimate calling, and I'm being able to add to that, I think is what healthy marriage to ministry. I don't know if that's not what I wanted to say, but like being healthily in ministry. Yeah. That's what it looks like. Yep. Prioritizing your relationship with Christ, prioritizing the things that he's giving you, prioritizing loving people, and telling the world about Christ in whatever platform that looks like for you. Whether the world is your neighbor or the world is you are literally a missionary. Yeah. Find a way to fulfill the Great Commission, and you're in ministry. Yep. You're doing what God has called you to do. Everything else is added.
Sorry, I'm showing my legs. I just realized my legs are all the way
out. I honestly noticed that earlier, and I was like, do I embarrass him in this moment? Cover me. Modesty cloth. No, but like, then in addition are all the other things. And so when you can prioritize and have your order in your life, which I think we should go through a whole thing about order and how God aligns, has shown us order and what our life needs to be. God, family, all those things. If we remember that to follow the order that God has given us, which is just being a follower of Christ and doing his will in every way that we can, our life is going to be so much easier. Yeah. And we won't have that selfish, and I mean, we're all going to selfishly want to do certain things. Yeah. And sometimes selfishly you have the selfish tendency to not do ministry and to not be involved. I want to do my own thing. I want to, the one time that I should serve or go to church is on Sunday, but I love Sunday football. I don't want to go. That's fine. Yeah. But God has asked us to be in community with people and to be in church. Yeah. And so it's like all those things, right? And so anyways, ultimately, I think it's important, and we can like really dive into some other stuff sometime. Yeah. But remembering that healthy ministry is living your life for Jesus in the best way that you can, telling other people about God, and loving your neighbor. Period.
Simple.
Period. And then simple. So simple.
So simple.
And being able to just do everything you can for God. Knowing we all make mistakes, knowing that things happen, knowing that our selfish tendencies come out, but reverting back to the important thing.
Married to ministry.
Married to ministry.
Ministry.
Ministry?
Ministry.
Married?
Married?
Just kidding. No, there should be no question mark behind married. If you're married, you're married. If you're not, you're not.
Yeah. Bing, bing, bing.
Amen.
Well, this has been fun.
This has been fun. Yeah, really serious.
Dude.
Our first take of this was like jokes for like an hour.
Yeah.
And so then we were like, we got all the jokes out of there. Let's just get serious. But we're pretty much jokesters though. So that felt really intense. Thank you guys for joining us today.
Yes.
We will be back here on the couch at the Correa house with Mimi sitting here with us, Mija.
Yep.
And maybe Jackson will pop in every once in a while.
Maybe.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
Love him, but hopefully not.
Yes. That is all.
Bye, y'all.
Deuces.